It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
All right, welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcast podcasted from a bubble in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, New Zealand. My name is Lewis. I'm the host of the show. For those who don't know, New Zealand is, or Auckland rather, is in its third lockdown, and New Zealand as a whole are in their second. I believe that New Zealand moved in the parlance of our local alert system from 4, which is full noise alert, hide under the bed, coronavirus alert level, to level 3, while this fine city that houses half of our population, half our population remains in lockdown. They're saying for at least another 2 weeks, so I think it's officially about a week. That's the thing. I don't monitor so closely anymore. Just when everyone else starts to talk about emerging, I'll emerge. So, I mean, was it inevitable it arrived here? Probably preaching to the choir a bit here, but considering most of my listeners are based in New Zealand or expats, or, New Zealand affiliated and have fairly keen knowledge, we did get complacent, I think, about things like vaccination. Certainly, at my work, not a lot of, shall we say, stakeholders were scanning in, but that certainly wasn't unique, and I wouldn't say so if it was, because that would be kind of throwing my work under the bus. It was happening at supermarkets as well. I remember standing there one day, and I decided to, this is, before we knew Delta had arrived, I decided to stand by the scanning thing, because I noticed I was the only one kind of doing it. I don't know if this is a bit of a grumpy old man move, but I just stood there with my earbuds in. And I decided to count 30 people going in, and not one person scanned in. And I'd also only just been saying on the one regular bus I get, which is home from the gym there in Newmarket, I walk over and then I do, I gym it up, I gym the shit out of it, and then I generally catch the bus home. And I just started noticing, probably around the period of time, again, the invisible threat that Delta was actually out and about in Auckland. Again, I only just said to someone, man, a whole lot of people, well, not no one, I'd said a whole lot of people on the uptake of masks on my bus seems to have significantly dropped in the last 2 weeks. In other words, again, people were getting complacent. But hey, look, do we really need to talk about coronavirus? It kind of becomes a topic when you're in the bubble. So, to the episode, I only just recently said I'm committing to an episode a week on average before the end of 2021, as this will take it up to 125 episodes over what will then be 5 years. Goodness, the time has really flown, which I'll be quite happy with. It's an average of one a fortnight, and then lockdown hits. And I really do, as you probably heard, if you're a regular podcast listener in general, you probably heard other hosts say this, it is much better being in person. I mean, even if it's not podcast listeners, we kind of know this. The full spectrum of human communication face to face. But you can get it pretty close in sound quality, I think, and as well as kind of echo when you're chatting is a big part of that. You don't want that uncanny valley feeling when you're talking to someone. The connection isn't quite as locked in as it could be. So these are becoming the quest for the perfect Zoom call. And Scott and I put some time into getting this one right, basically, because the first time we connected on Up, he told me it's great chatting with musicians, by the way, because they often have great kit at home. He had the classic Broadcast Shure SM57, which is a lovely mic, but the interface was set at the wrong sample rate. You're still starting to fall asleep on me. But we got it right for the Friday, and I was a little bit like a giggly teenager, because I think it was just nice to lock in and chat to someone for so long. I really like Scott. One of those people I feel is kind of a kindred spirit, but, you often have these people who you've not, in the scheme of things, spent much time with. So, we very much enjoyed talking about a lot of the similar interests we have outside of music, which include the meditative benefits of fishing, admittedly, if you're not a fish. Scott's extensive collection of outdoor cooking devices, some homemade, some purchased. Why Reedz are called the Rainmakers in one certain spot of New Zealand, and their excellent outdoor concert film Waironga, which I went to the premiere of a few weeks ago and is now available in glorious, what do they call it? 4K on YouTube. Just search up Fat Freddy's Waironga on YouTube. Lovely kind of, I think it's a lovely thing to watch over lockdown. If even, in the background, coming back on in and having a look at what they're up to from moment to moment. Yeah, it's nice. It's a treasure. Oh, we also talked about vintage balsamic vinegar. And a bunch of other stuff. It was a great chat. Thank you, Scott. Hey, I got this letter from a listener. This is lovely. And because he said that, well, I'll read it to you. Kia ora, e hoa. I just had listened to your conversation with Jen Ferguson, and you mentioned that you haven't received much in the way of listener correspondence in a while. Consider this some listener correspondence, or more appropriately, quote, fan mail, unquote, perhaps. I've been contentedly listening to your podcast for at least a couple of years without feeling the need to get in touch. But this evening, over the dishes, I felt a strong compulsion to email. This is very, very good on the details here. It's lovely. I've kind of definite theatre of the mind here, meeting this fella via his words. I felt a strong compulsion to email for little other purpose than to express my gratitude for what you do. Thank you, Lewis. It's lovely. I live on a small farm with my wife and our 2 young children in Oxford, North Canterbury. It's about 50 minutes west of Christchurch towards the mountains. I have a bloody ridiculous, almost straight line commute to Rolleston, where I work for Selwyn District Council. Yes, a podcast big with truckers apparently, which makes sense. And a small team, not this man's a trucker, looking for libraries, heritage and public art. It's a fantastic gig. I'm in the car crossing the Canterbury Plains for about an hour and a half each day. That's as long as these go. Plenty of time to be enthralled in RNZ and various podcasts. And he goes on for another paragraph, and it basically is just more of an introduction and some lovely words. But if I keep going, oh look, it's Luke. I'm sure Luke won't mind if people put all these pieces together and figure out exactly which Luke this is. Thank you very much, Luke. That's a lovely message. Like the show, leave a message, subscribe and share on one or more of the following services: Verbal Highs on Twitter, Verbal Highs Podcast on Facebook, and Verbal Highs on Apple and Google Podcasts. You can stream via Spotify or iHeartRadio, and I have my own little corner of the internet, verbalhighs.com, where you can find the episodes in full glorious colour, with, of course, audio and download options. Don't forget, shout-outs to my lovely sponsors, Free FM, independent community media based in Waikato. They serve a bunch of different communities throughout New Zealand as their function as an access radio station. Of course, the world is now very modern, and you don't have to listen to their shows. So I suggest you go and look at the different content they have available, freefm.org.nz. Take it away, Scott.
This is Dr. Tannen's Verbal Highs.
Oh my God, you just sound, I mean, I wouldn't say arousing, but compared to the other day.
Yeah, operator era.
Yeah. No, here you are. Look, yeah, it is hoodie season.
Sure is.
We'll get straight into it. How was the Zoom party?
That's funny. I find it so hard to be engaged,
Yeah.
Yeah. When there's more than one. If it's just one-on-one, it's all good.
Yeah. How many of you at the soiree?
Ooh, half a dozen. Too many.
And even though it was virtual, is that why you were posting flans and so on? Like, were you catering this thing?
No, I guess I just, you post what you're doing in the day, and what I'm doing in the day, and is mainly cooking at the moment anyway. Yeah,
it's we're going to talk about this. It's what John Kirwan called in that depression ad, active relaxing. I'm the same.
Yeah.
Podcast in the headphones, long prep from scratch. We should give this some context. So I like these to be kind of evergreen, but we are both in New Zealand for the second national COVID lockdown and the third Auckland lockdown. And I was going to tell you that I shaved for you, but I figure that's probably something a man would rather have whispered in his ear. What's that?
It's funny because I grew a moustache for you.
Oh dear. So what do you think about? Do you reckon the Stones will keep going? I mean, it seems. How do you keep going without Charlie? How does Keith stay in time without Charlie?
Oh, look, I don't think I don't think Keith's too worried about staying in time with anyone. To be honest, he's sort of out of sync with the Grim Reaper and the world in general, which is why he's lasted so long, no doubt. I think I read this morning though, because I've been reading a lot about Charlie Watts and his influence and how people are revering him in his passing. Yeah. I read some great stuff from Stuart Copeland this morning from the Police. He wrote an amazing article for The Guardian about Charlie Watts's influence and just how unique he was, And I think in that article they mentioned that they had a replacement already because Charlie Watts has been ill with cancer for quite some time.
Wow.
And they were preparing to go on the road without him, which is
just
crazy.
Quickly, just move your mic down a little bit because it sounds so good, but there's a little bit of pop. Listen to me.
Just down, as in further away.
Yeah, there's just a little bit of pop there. What I've heard is that I don't know whether this is true or not. It's totally anecdotal, but that Mick Jagger is kind of like Gene Simmons in the businessman sense, in terms of like just keep that side of the juggernaut rolling on. But then there's also what else are they going to do at this stage? Like, it's probably keeping them going,
Yeah, and they clearly love it. I mean, I went to that Western Springs show in Auckland. God, it'd be at least 10 years ago.
No,
longer.
Are you sure? I think it was Mount Smart because it was the first time I'd seen them. I reckon it was about 7-8 years ago. And anyway, similar time frame.
Yeah, I can't quite remember, but I remember watching them, and they did this part of the show where a mechanical arm came out and plonked a mini club sort of setup version of their stage setup right out in the middle of the audience, and they played all this sort of 70s. It was when they were playing all the 70s sort of classics, Can You Hear Me Knocking and all that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and man, they looked like they were having such fun. Well, you would, wouldn't you? I mean, if you had a catalogue that deep, you could just go, what are we going to play today,
Look, I totally agree, and I realise you saying that it was a different concert, but within, considering how long they've been going, within the same ballpark. It was sometime in the last 10 years, but I was going to say, I thought exactly the same thing, and I said similar to Buddies and stuff. Just a few flashes of moments, like the look, because they have, obviously these days, those amazing crystal clear monitors, LCDs, whatever they are, and just Keith looked genuinely in heaven during a couple of bits of guitar work. It wasn't. It's not a what I call like when people turn into like a Vegas cabaret act of themselves.
Yeah, and they've got energy, I mean,
absolutely. I know, Mick Jagger.
Octogenarians, they're just like, there's so much energy coming off the stage. I mean, in some ways it's slightly unnerving to watch because you're kind of thinking, shit, they're all grandparents, they're but the way they just strut around and do their thing, it's just, it's quite impressive.
It sounds like you and I very similar, like, takeaways from that show. Yeah, I remember, totally. And, God, who knows? Mick Jagger might get all his blood swapped out every week, You never know.
Yeah.
Is that disrespectful? I'm not sure. So what about you guys, man? I'm going to ask you about the film, but I was just thinking, big collectives. I listen to... I don't know. Do you listen to podcasts much?
A few. I kind of go through fits and starts of it. I'm a bit like that about consuming all sorts of media.
Yeah.
I kind of dip into the world of streaming television for a period of time. Like right now, obviously lockdown.
Yeah.
Good time for that. But already we've only been in lockdown for a week, and I'm over the TV.
Yeah.
I just never.
Okay, I've got one for you, and it relates to where I'm going. Music nerd, but also like a good bit of banter. Actually, you guys probably like this when you're away together. Questlove Supreme,
yes,
and he just has some amazing guests. Anyway,
I have listened to some of those.
Right. Listen to the Avalanches one most recently, and listen to them talking about sampling from scratch back when the technology was like that. Anyway, collectively, those guys really, I find it really affectionate. They refer to like all their members and their ex-members as a root. Yeah. And I think people who are quite close are a root as well. Are you a Freddie? Is that the correct... Is that the correct
I am
term?
a Freddie, I guess, now, because I came into the band after they formed. So I guess the roots of Fat Freddy's Drop were the Bongmaster crew and the New Crackhead Experience. You know, so it's Benny Staples and it's Aaron Tukana and it's obviously Moo and Del and Toby and Andreas Lepper and, you know, and kind of what was happening in Wellington in the mid-90s. And I was there at that time, but I wasn't connected to those people outside of knowing the horn players from music school, really, and being an audience member, you know, going along to club nights and watching them and making friends with Kyan and all that. So, you know, all the people on the periphery of that sort of scene, and then the band obviously formed, became essentially what it is now in terms of its structure and the way it operates and plays. And then when Warren left to concentrate on Trinity, then, you know, then I stepped in. So I'm less of a root and more of a Freddie.
That's a really interesting, long and nuanced answer about your perceived provenance. I was more meaning whether is it noun for a member of the Freddies?
Oh, right. A Fred.
A Fred.
Yeah.
Are you a Fred? You don't call each other Freds?
I'm a Fred. No, we call ourselves the Freddies. The Freddies.
So you're a Freddie, but that sounds collective. It's collective and singular. Look at that, folks.
Yep, that's right.
Honestly, Waironga. How was that experience? Like, I imagine it's a reaction to lockdown. We weren't in lockdown, but to the rest of the world, to where you guys normally tour, being in lockdown and wanting to do something, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I think. You know, like everyone, when we first went into lockdown last year, we were actually in Europe on tour. Europe went into lockdown. We had to get out of town, you know, as fast as we could and get home. And so later in the year, we had the opportunity to go in and do a performance at the Michael Fowler Centre because we were looking around thinking, well, you know, there's all these empty venues, there's production crew doing nothing, and the production guys were really, really hurting because, you know, as a musician, you've got a little bit of residual income coming in from various places. The production guys had nothing, so we applied for some funding to put on a show, an audience-less show, I should say, really so that we could keep in contact with our crew in the venue, you know, and that was such an illuminating experience for us because we had the chance to sort of set up in a completely different way, facing each other rather than the audience.
No audience, eh?
No audience.
Yeah. So that's hugely different.
Yeah, and play to each other, which is how we set up in our studio. Yeah. And so it felt instantly familiar and incredibly strange being in a huge space, a huge venue where you can see the empty seats, no one there except us and the production crew, you know. Yeah. And it just gave us a sort of chance to sort of to approach some songs in a slightly different way, or just kind of the energy in the performances in a different way. Because often in a live context, you're thinking, "Geez, we've got 2,500 people. We really they're full of energy. We need to be full of energy and sort of ride that wave with them."
And am I correct that with what you guys play, just to cut you off for a sec, that it is kind of does have a DJ element to it where you can move according to, you know, kind of the crowd's vibe, right? You guys
that's
play
right,
to
yeah, that's right. So we can extend or contract things as we see fit, you know, much like a DJ getting in or out of a tune quicker or slower than you might normally do.
Please continue.
And I think we had such a good time doing that that we thought, man, it'd be great to do another one. And we actually looked at another venue in Hawke's Bay here, a recently renovated Opera House, which is a beautiful space.
Yeah.
We couldn't quite make it work in terms of the production and everything. And we've had this connection with Waironga, which is a farm not far from Hastings there, up above the coast, for years and years and years. And we've talked about doing a show there or performing there. And we suddenly thought, well, why don't we just take this performance idea and shove it into this, unusual setting? The people have seen us in rooms before. What about doing one outside?
Well, I don't know how much of what you guys decide to do and understand is needs to be unsaid, or whether you kind of bullet point out all these kind of, I guess, what's the word, like, it's kind of it's strategy in a way, but like, obviously I'm assuming it occurred to you guys that for your very large European audience, it's a backdrop of New Zealand, even though it's just a backyard. Like, it is very New Zealand looking, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think, or
am I overthinking that?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
because not wanting to discount our local audience at all.
Oh, for sure.
We'd just done a summer series of shows here in New Zealand, and it felt like New Zealand had a really great summer in that regard. There were lots of shows on, lots of great performances, lots of bands really up to the ante and sort of stepped up to being big show bands, And meanwhile, in Europe, nothing was going on at all. And we were supposed to be over there doing, out that tour that got curtailed was 35 shows. So
God.
we're thinking that's a lot of people that we would normally be playing for, who haven't been able to come to us. And it's actually the second year in a row that's happened. So it was primarily with that audience in mind that we put this together. We thought, what can we do for them? Which is why we've, we kicked around the idea of, do we put it behind a paywall?
That's what I was just going to ask. I was going to give the example of, because I did watch what you guys did afterwards, and I'll be interested to hear from you exactly what you've done. But I thought of the Louis C.K. model. Remember him before he was cancelled?
Yeah.
where he'd put up, where he'd put up, I don't know if you know this, he kind of pioneered putting up a special just on his site for $5.
Yeah.
What did you end up doing?
We gave it away for free.
Great.
But we made it an appointment, so you had to sort of like, okay, we're not going to just put it straight onto the YouTube TV channel or whatever, and you can just access whenever. We wanted to make it feel like it was a special, right, this is the time to do it, and we know that you're all in your separate houses or whatever it might be, or you might be able to get together with a few other people, but this is the time that it's going to play.
Great.
So we did it like that. We did it kind of like a premiere screening type idea, I guess, and it seemed to really connect with people. The fact that it was kind of that one, it was unique in that it wasn't just us performing in front of an audience and we happened to film it at the same time.
Yeah,
it was like these are songs performed in a particular way because there's no audience.
Yeah,
and we're approaching it in that in that context, and so.
And I loved it was like really lovely and understated. Like
it was quite, for me.
And so people at home in lockdown as well. It occurs to me now. Yeah,
it was quite emotional in lots of ways.
It felt that way. Yeah.
Because it was something that playing on stage is what we do. It's what we love to do. As much as we love mucking around in the studio and making beats and writing tunes and that sort of thing, being on stage and performing is a really special opportunity, and so to be able to get back out there and do that again after such a long break felt really special, and to be on a stage, to be actually back on a stage felt pretty incredible, but also to do it in the context of this, I don't know, recalibrated world, was just kind of lent a little bit extra, I don't know, gravitas.
It's all there. Yeah. It's interesting, and I will appreciate, like, if you probably have, hear enough from Moo and the rest of your bandmates to have not listened to my podcast episode with Moo, but I did say to him,
I haven't checked that one out.
Well, I did.
He
it's
can
funny.
Talk, so I love it. I'm going to dip in. Don't worry.
Right. Anyway, so it's funny you say that, because I said to him in that episode, something along the lines of, "Are you a studio band who also plays live, or are you a live band who has to go into the studio?" for his answer, Scott, you need to go and listen.
I will. I'd be intrigued, though. It feels like a balance to me.
Yeah.
It really does. But there's an energy about being on stage that, for me personally, you can't replicate with anything else. So.
Also, the super obvious is one informs the other forever in time. And the other thing I was going to ask is, so moving away from the musical side of it, the other stylistic decisions, like Sarah's directed it, right? So she was kind of director / cinematographer, I take it?
Yeah,
just to follow up on that question quickly, so did you guys talk stylistically about how it was going to be shot, like how it was going to look, or did you kind of leave her to that? Because she's kind of a Freddie, isn't she? So
yeah, absolutely. So we wanted there to be some continuity. So some of the things that are in the the Lock-In film from Michael Feller Centre are carried across to Waironga. Couches, artwork.
The painting was such a nice touch. It was so random but so perfect.
And that actually is from the kitchen in our studio.
Yeah.
So that hangs there. And so we wanted some things to connect us back to being in the studio. Because essentially that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's us behaving like we would in the studio, but with more context for it, and a crazy, not a crazy setting, but certainly a different setting. But it needed to connect us back to what it's like being in the studio. So that's why those couches are there. That's why that artwork's there. There's a little drinks cabinet that's beside the horns at one. That's actually what we sit around when we were jamming and recording and stuff, and we have a little drinks table.
It was a beautiful drinks cabinet. So that's that's what they call the mise en scène, mate. What's in the frame?
What about
what about the shot types? Because it was definite to me. It was in terms of sort of shot styles and edits and stuff. It was filmed in quite a deliberate way. Everything is, isn't it? Because it's controlled by humans. But did you guys, was that left with Sarah, or was there talk about, did you sit in the edit room at the end?
No, we didn't. So, one of the things I really like about Freddie's is that, some years ago we made a decision to sort of really up the game in terms of our professionalism and our approach to, the business and being the business. And that entailed sort of handing the reins over in lots of ways to pros in their own game.
Gotcha.
Whether it's a production guys, whether it's front of house sound, whether it's lighting, pay the money, get the good guys in, let them do what they're good at.
And also don't kind of do their head in, be over managing them through the process or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. And give them the chance to do what we have done as musicians, which is forge a longer term relationship and inform what happens with their own skill set and personality, So we Sarah just took over. She put together a big crew actually. So
yeah, great.
I think it was like a 5 camera shoot, maybe 4 or 5.
Yep.
People from all over the place, Auckland, Wellington, just people who are really good at what they do that
Great.
She had a connection with,
yeah.
And let them cut loose, do your thing, So it was handy that the weather packed in some ways, and that it added some visual drama, and we were freezing cold, it was raining, and
that's on my list, Scott. This thing's writing itself. Thank you. It's sort of staged. It's like, no, I'm just kidding. It's like, what are the chances? So there's just suddenly, and I think, and by the way, sorry, what you probably don't know, because there's hundreds of people there, was I was at that amazing screening premiere in Auckland. So one of you said, I can't remember if it was you. One of you said anyway, it hadn't rained in that spot for someone said beforehand, it's like one of those, you jinx it. Someone said beforehand, it never rains here, so don't really worry about contingency for rain. Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah. Freddie's actually had a nickname amongst the farmers of Hawke's Bay for years. We were called the Rainmakers because we would do a show. We would announce a show.
Oh, that's cool.
And they'd be in the middle of summer, typically sometime in February. And they wouldn't have had rain for months.
I love that story for some reason. Yeah, yeah.
And we'd roll into town to do our show, and it would rain. Heavily.
Yeah.
So then we had a little sequence where it was quite the opposite, where we'd turn up to do a show, and it'd be just unbelievably hot. Mid-30s, wouldn't have rained for months, not a single cloud. You'd be burnt to a crisp. But then this one, our host for the day, Johnny Parker, it's his farm, his family farm. And he was like, nah, it's not going to rain. It hasn't rained for a week. It's not going to rain for another week. But
licks his finger, sticks it up in the air. That's local knowledge, right?
Yeah.
My knee's not sore. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, that's right. The wind's coming from, the southeast, and it never rains from the southeast, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But, no, it did rain, and it got very cold. And we were kind of, at one stage we were umming and ahhing about, oh my God, do we go and finish this today, or do we try and get another day in? And the crew had already committed. They were in, they were set up. And we thought, let's just keep rolling, see what happens, see what we get. And they were happy though. They were like, yes, it's raining. There's steam coming out of the horns. There's fire.
Yeah, it did look, yeah. But I got to say, I mean, I feel that you were cold, Scott, but what I was worried about for you guys was electrocution. It was getting to that point where it would be like a Muppet Show sketch. One of you would kind of... That's funny because it didn't happen.
Show, so that actually rings very true to me. My life does feel like the Muppet Show.
But then again, stylistic decisions from memory, there's a very kind of definite, quite long cut that shows that we've come back, and there's been the kind of gazebos over the top and all the rest of it.
Yeah, that's right. There had to be a pause, really, because I mean, we originally did set out to do that, where we thought, okay, well, we'll perform in 3 parts of the day.
Yeah,
and that was kind of mid-afternoon, and we'll do a couple of songs that sort of fit into that, and then we'll transition into the night, and then later in the night, we'll bring out Mui's techno beats, And,
God, they're pretty stonking at the moment. Some of that stuff without you guys is just straight up and down 4 a.m. Berlin nightclub, with a sliver of Jamaica running through it.
He has an arsenal of weapons like that.
When I hadn't seen him for so long, Scott, and I hold Mu in high regard, and so I just wanted to go into the studio. I went to your spot in Kilburn, and just wanted to get the interview down. We obviously we do know each other fairly well from quite a few years ago, so we chatted beforehand and afterwards. But the music he was playing was fucking incredible. The track he was playing before I started, and I figured it had to be one of his, but kind of, as I say, I just wanted to get set up and chat to him, so I didn't really want to start picking his brain about the stuff he was making. But yeah, as evidenced in the film and what played beforehand, that end of stuff seems to be particularly kind of fruitful in his said arsenal at the moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those people too that has that ability just to keep chipping away at his craft, if you know what I mean, at his production craft. So he always has a setup at home and at the studio. Yeah. So, I mean, he's, we go and have a rehearsal or whatever, and you spend the first half an hour just sort of checking out Mu's new beats or, jamming along to something you've never played on before because it's a hot-sounding thing that he's created in the last week, I think his production is just amazing. I'd love to hear, like, a solo thing from him. Like, he could do that.
Oh, totally. And what you guys do that, again, you're well aware of, and most fans will be aware of, is you kind of not soften that, but yeah, what you guys do over the top really broadens what he's doing audience-wise, I think. Like, it's a certain set that like to that like the straight up and down rave business, and I think it's a great combo. But last few things on the film, I need to discuss Ian's hat. That is a fantastic hat, and
isn't it beautiful?
It, to my knowledge, is the only other hat like that I've seen is Curious George's Offsider, the man with the yellow hat.
Yeah,
but Ian's is orange. Do you see similarities in those hats?
Well, you've unlocked one of the great mysteries of Ian's wardrobe right there. That is a long-held secret source of inspiration.
You're pulling my leg.
Serious? No, that's absolutely straight up.
Oh my God, I'm good.
Yeah, that's exactly where the inspiration for that comes from. It's beautiful, that hat. I mean, it's and Ian's had a long association.
You need to be in the right mood to wear that hat. That is not a day-to-day hat.
Oh, he would wear that quite often.
Oh, well, goodness.
Yeah, well, he's got several.
Yeah.
He's got several he can choose from.
I'd love to know the style of it. I mean, they all have names,
colours.
I'd love to know. It is a particular style. Does he get that Hills Hats guy? This is like a paid promo. Does he get that Hills Hats guy to make? I've got to see if that guy wants to make me a hat, and I'll do some shout outs on the show.
No, we've had a long. Simon's had a really deep.
Can't fuck with a good hat.
Music for ages.
Yeah,
and he's made hats for Lady Six. In fact, Lady Six's hat is a bit of a bite of Ian's one. Ian's always been the first one in there to hey, how about we make the brim bigger here? How about we make that taller? How about we go for this? If he
was from Dallas, he'd be like the guy with the biggest, the cartoon Stetson. You have to go sideways. You have to go sideways through doorways.
Yeah.
The other question is, in terms of filming decisions, is do you recall? And there's two names for these. So firstly, you need to school me here. A tuba is the same as a double bass, correct? I don't mean a double bass as in an upright double bass, but the tuba instrument.
I guess traditionally it would have played that role in like brass bands and that sort of thing.
Because that's what I think.
Yeah. So does he play a tuba or does he play a euphonium?
Who?
It's a tuba.
Who?
No, it's a tuba.
Who?
Joey.
Well, it does. This is the thing. It doesn't get played in the film, but there are shots in the film with the tuba present. So to me, the tuba was like in a kung fu film, the old guy that does nothing till the end and then fucks everyone up. But then it ends. Oh, there's the cat.
Jumped in my lap.
And no outcome from the tuba. It's just a cinematic.
Well, it's a beautiful looking thing.
It is.
That's fair to say. I think I'm just trying to remember back to that day. I'm pretty sure there was a song that didn't make the cut.
Right. So
and
that's
I think
interesting.
The tuba might have been in that song.
That's my cinematic nerdery again. There was foreshadowing.
There
was foreshadowing of. Well, I kind of had to teach a bit of this stuff for
years as well. You were just waiting for that to kind of like fall out of the sky and.
I just thought that just
save the day for the hero.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. But what's his name? Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey, Star Wars. Oh, now I've lost the last thing I was going to say about it. Oh, yeah. So just to close off the film, amazing seeing it in the cinema. So many times over years, I have gone to concert films that have been ruined by the screening, particularly the hi-fi. But man, it was great. Right. Was it quite? Because you talked about it being emotional, making it. Was it quite full on in the cinema for you?
Yeah.
Or did you just kick back and enjoy it?
I did kick back and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, I was really pleasantly surprised with how many people came. I was the idea. I mean, I've got to give credit to MC Slave for even coming up with the idea for the screening. He was just like, "This is crazy. We've got this thing. We need to put that on the big screen. This just can't be on your laptop." And we were like, oh, geez, really? Okay, well, see what you can pull off. And the next thing he was like, right, I've got all of the cinemas there, at the, where was it? It was up in Newmarket.
Yeah.
They've given us the whole place for the day. We can do what we want, basically. And I was like, oh, shit.
Well, their thing is, obviously superhero blockbusters are the model now, but my understanding is that a lot of cinemas, the reality is, looking for those more kind of bespoke one-off things is the way forward. So, like, how can we make this a kind of, this is probably a very economic-y, businessy term, but a value-added screening? Yeah. And so that's why they're really keen to do stuff like that, because, I spoke on another podcast, like I went to the Dawn Raid doco.
Oh, nice, yeah.
On like a Thursday night at, let's say, 8 p.m, middle of Auckland, Queen Street. there was 7 people in the whole theatre, you know.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So general release stuff, again, as I say, aside from superhero blockbusters, is becoming harder and harder to frequent. But that aside, yeah, no, it was great. Of course you guys had people turn up because you bloody got lots of fans. And friends, mate.
So it would seem, yeah.
Yeah. So how was that like? Because, I don't know, I think for me now that I feel like this lockdown, the reality of what COVID is hitting a lot more.
Yeah.
But
No,
but I wasn't just finishing a first show on a leg of what for you guys is a regular, you know, well-organised part of your career of you know, touring in Europe and basically seeing like what sounded to me like the lights switching off on a map of Europe, because that's kind of what happened to you guys, right?
Yeah.
So how was that experience? And did you just sort of come back and it didn't affect you too much, or you know, in other words, how's your experience of COVID compared to mine based on going through that?
I think, well, we had we saw it coming somewhat, because even before we went away on tour, we were having discussions about which shows were likely to be cancelled, which countries were shutting down. I know Michael Baker, the epidemiologist from back in the Welly days. In fact, I remember having a huge party on his roof of his apartment back in the day, but he's the Otago University Dr. Michael Baker, who's often in the media, and so I was talking to him and getting advice from him on behalf of the band and the touring party, you know, and so he said, "This is what's going to happen. This is the likely scenario. This is how you need to behave." So we had quite a good sort of understanding that it was serious, but just the speed with which it all went down. So we were expecting to go over, do our shows in Germany, possibly lose a couple shows in the middle of the trip around Italy and Spain, that seemed to be the most likely scenario, and then we'd finish the trip doing a few more shows. So it looked like it was going to be curtailed somewhat, but still manageable. But I mean, literally the day we arrived, boom, you know, there's another show down. Oh, this is another country lockdown. Now we can't go up here, you know, and we even the very first show, right up until the last minute, we didn't get approval from the local authority, you know, government authority, to do the show until right at the very last hurdle, you know, and they were like, "Yep, it can go ahead." And I think it was for like 3,000 people or something like that. So I guess it was probably considered quite a high risk scenario for that, you know, for that time. It was in Frankfurt.
So in other words, authorities had to kind of sign off on it and make that decision.
Yeah, that's right. You know, so they were umming and ahhing about what was going on. Then we drove up to Hamburg and we were on our way further north, up to Stockholm, I think, and Oslo and that sort of place. And we stopped there for the night. And then literally in the course of, you know, over dinner, the whole tour fell to bits.
Fuck.
And then we were like, okay, well, let's just go to Berlin and catch up with our mates and do some DJ shows for a few days. And then if you want to go home, you can go home. And if you want to stay, you stay.
Yeah.
And then by the time we'd finished that discussion, the travel agent was on the phone saying, right, get to the airport, you know.
Yeah.
So, and so it kind of felt serious, but also slightly removed from it because, you know, you weren't sort of like, oh, well, I don't even know what we're talking about here.
It's like you sort of dipped your toe in, like you kind of bungeed in and bungeed out.
Yeah, it was like, it felt like a near miss, you know. It felt like we just kind of, we glanced off the side of what was going on but then had to come home because everyone was taking it very seriously.
Just one aside with that, like for people who don't know locally, like you're a serious touring act now. Like it's not a bunch of guys kind of going over there with your guitar cases and stowaway and on people. So there's not only a whole crew, but there's freight sent over beforehand and all of that, right? So you had to kind of like that all had to be coordinated and reversed quite quickly, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's right. It's complicated, you know. So we had 18 people and a ton and a half of gear to get back out.
Amazing, yeah.
And it took a while, you know. All the people got out, but the gear didn't for a long time.
Yeah.
And you know,
just safely in lock-up somewhere, obviously.
Well, you say safely, but people will still have, you know,
sniffing around it
going on. In that tours had fallen over from, we weren't the only band out there. There were dozens, hundreds of bands.
Right, yeah.
And so all of a sudden these backline companies and storage companies are looking at these bills that are not being paid because the bands haven't earned any money.
One of those storage wars scenarios. Oh, God, imagine that.
And so they're thinking, well, how are we going to recoup our outlay? And so in my mind, I was thinking, am I ever going to see my saxophone again? I've had it since I was 13.
And also, suddenly you feel like New Zealand is very far away from where my gear is.
That's right. Yeah, so we got a bit of help with getting our gear back. We got it back eventually. I felt extremely relieved to have not only my gear but everyone else's gear back in country, and that's really where the genesis of that lock-in Michael Fowler Centre came from, because we had gear all of a sudden. We were excited to see it, and we were like, yes, we didn't really get to play. We played the one show in Frankfurt, and we were on fire.
I get you. It's because it came home. Stuff was back on land, and you could.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So it sounds like on the other kind of more emo side of things with coronavirus, like I was talking about. Like I'm putting words in your mouth here, but it's sounding like because we were quite lucky here, and maybe we got a bit complacent that side of it hasn't sunk in with you properly till now either. I just thought you guys might have had that corona kind of, already on you.
I think it was a shock not being able to do that tour, not being able to complete that tour, and then coming back and immediately, of course, our management and promoters over in the UK and everything went, got head down, tail up. All of a sudden, yes, there's dates for next year. Okay, sweet. Okay, cool. Next year. That's been pushed out again, another 12 months. So all of a sudden you start seeing that as you're thinking, wow, okay, well, normally we go up to Europe twice a year. We haven't been up there since 2019 now.
Yeah.
It's going to be 2022 at best when we get back there again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we will get back there. But all of a sudden it feels like far out. That is quite a big chunk of time.
Yeah.
Where that part of your career and business activity and artistic output is in pause mode. And
could you argue it's kind of the biggest, it's the main thing you guys do on your calendar in terms of the combination of all those things combined, right?
Absolutely is, yeah. So, I mean, we do shows around New Zealand, obviously, but, we can't sort of... One thing we didn't want to do last year with the lockdown and then everyone coming back out and all these shows coming on stream, we were like, the audience is going to get fatigued at some stage. We can't just go out there and thrash them to death,
Yeah.
We need to be able to, do a good number of shows, but without just taking the piss, basically. And so, now we're in the position where we're like, okay, the payoff for that was it meant that we could organise these shows for September, but those ones are in the can now. So,
of course. Yeah, September is like pretty much now.
Almost tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, we've got to be in level 1 for those shows to come off. And all of a sudden you're going, oh, wow. So that's like 3 tours and a bunch of other gigs that have all been, I'm going to say put in pause mode rather than cancelled, because that's kind of the way we're trying to think about
it. Postponed. Remember on the radio, Saturday mornings, listening for your sport? Is it postponed or is it cancelled?
On the cold, rainy days, you'd be praying, right?
Yeah.
Please. Please say it's off.
Well, I just had a buddy, just posted again his 50th birthday party, a few weeks ago. Well, coronavirus ruined it last year, but, here we go again. Bang, twice. It's like, God, I wouldn't bloody try and have a third 50th birthday, I don't think,
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, you at the same time, that's kind of, I guess, what we're kind of facing a little bit. We're thinking, okay, you've just got to stay positive. You've got to, I mean, it's...
you guys are happening. You got that film. I mean, you put a film out, it's amazing.
True. I mean,
you played at the Michael Fowler Centre.
We're staying busy. We're staying busy as we can. You know? Funnily enough, the manager of Reedz, Nicole, is a philosophy tutor at the university.
Oh, it's the class you're taking with her.
And I'm taking a class with her. I'm taking philosophy classes.
I had no idea she's a uni tutor. So is Nicole a doctor now?
No, she's not.
Anyway.
Yeah. But, she's...
Isn't it weird being a student of, like, your colleague and kind of manager? How's she going to mark that work ethically, Scott?
Yeah. Well, it's an introductory course. So there's
moderate the shit out of that one if I was on that teaching team. Sorry, I feel like there was a point you were going to make about that.
Lots of apples. I've been sending you lots of apples.
Yeah, there was a point you were going to make about that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My point is that she's been studying philosophy for probably 5 or 6 years now, and I've seen the positive impact that's had on her ability to weather this particular storm, or just storms in general. You know.
Yeah.
And so I thought, man, I need a bit of that in my life, a bit of that, even-handedness. So, it's been really good for me in terms of how to conceptualize, a future, how to, deal with the day-to-day. It's been really good, and I think everyone in their own way has, in the band's sort of. Found something like that's given them a way to sort of navigate at the moment, which is really handy. It's actually, it's been.
You're on quite
good for me.
It's like that grass is greener thing. And literally in this, what I'm about to talk about. I'm in an apartment, and under electric light a lot of the day in lockdown. But from the few couple of photos I've seen, you've got quite a nice bit of semi-rural land where you are, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so
that must be that must help you. And I'd imagine with the food buzz that you do a bit of. Do you grow stuff as well, or like you experience? Yeah,
I would love to say that I am a paddock to table sort of guy.
Yeah. Can to table, bro.
I am not. Paddock to plate is not me. I have. My parents are fantastic gardeners, and I've tried, but I am not a fantastic gardener. I
think you'll find that's garden to plate unless you get meat. But weren't you talking about curing a sausage, turning your shed into a meat, not a processing plant? That sounds a bit into a curing, what do you call it? A curing room, like a cigar.
Yeah, I did have. Well, when I first moved down here, I actually built a fridge, which I called Franken Fridge, which was a.
That's right.
Which had a whole bunch of dials and temperature gauges and humidity monitors and all that sort of stuff in it. And I was making salami and curing meats and all that sort of stuff. And it was going really well. And a friend of mine had a pig farm down in the Kapiti Coast there, and we were talking about.
Supply chain,
hooking up and doing some work together, but then touring life got really busy. This was a few years ago, obviously, and it became just untenable. The idea of doing that. That said, I still make sausages. I still cure things. I still, I love fishing, so I love. I
love fishing. I love fishing
fish and turning it into stuff. I really do.
Do you surf cast from where you are? Like where do you how do you fish where you are? Do you go out in a boat?
Kayak fishing.
Oh wow!
Which is kind of my.
There's a bit of knack to that, eh? Like I tried it once, and it's like very unsettling when you first try it. The kind of weight and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, hindsight's fantastic, and now that I sort of. Remember back to when I first started, I got myself into some hairy positions.
Oh, bro, if you roll with a big fish on your line, my goodness.
Holy moly, man, I was. But the good thing about that is that you sort of like, wow, I sort of survived that one and got a few battle scars from it, and now I feel really confident. So I mean, I often drive all the way from here up to the Coromandel just because I love that part of the coast so much. I've
seen my folks got a batch there, and I've seen a guy like it was like something out of like a cartoon or something. Like come back, there's a beach called Whiritoa. Come back in his kayak with a fish so big it was kind of like hanging off. The tail was hanging off one side, and the big, serious sized fish.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty cool. It's a pretty. My wife always asks me, "What do you think about?" when you go fishing, and I don't think about anything.
That's totally, bro.
There on the water.
I worked that out so long ago. It's the same with surf casting. Like that's what I really like about it is you go in that zone. It's kind of the zone I get if if DJing's going the right way for me, that's the best. It's called flow, isn't it? Well, actually, that's different to flow when you're fishing because it's a lot more low impact. But it's a similar thing. It's like it clears your brain in a really positive way, state of relaxation.
You're connected to what's directly in front of you. You know? Staying on the boat, staying out of the water, catching the fish, whatever, watching your line, all that sort of stuff.
You know how good that sounds, sitting in my apartment here at the moment, like being out on the water.
I know. I mean, as it come back to your original point, we're bloody lucky in that we do have like a bit of land. When I say a bit of land, we've got a paddock with some sheep running around in it to keep the grass down. But the sun's been shining the last few days, so go and sit in the paddock with your coffee and watch the sheep run around. There's actually a really I feel bloody lucky. I do.
Look, I've got this huge balcony. Like you have to sort of see it to comprehend how large it is. It's because
I've seen some photos.
Right. It's to do with how high you can legally build a building, but I haven't really done anything with it. But even on a tiny little balcony somewhere else in town, have you ever heard of he's kind of a bit of a global music legend who no one in New Zealand knows about, but he lives back here now. Have you heard of Harry the Bastard?
Yes.
Right. So I go to Harry's for ribs every now and again, and he's just got on his little balcony a kind of hands are so useless to everyone listening. I'm showing Scott. It's just like a kind of a smoker. And I think it's got a little gas line to it. Does that ring a bell? So I'm thinking about putting something like that out. And he just does, because he lived in the States for so many years, he's perfected those like low and slow ribs with the rub, and then this really decadent like blue cheese dip.
Holy shiz.
Yeah. We better sign off and go and eat something. But
I've got a friend who. But
anyway, so just to close it off, I'm thinking about Well, I've got all this space on the balcony. I could have all of these.
You could
doing food
have your little garden up there too.
Yeah, totally. Although how's this for interesting? One guest I had on, because I saw her TED talk and I was really inspired what she was doing. Insects don't. There's no pollination path for insects in most central cities. So I've tried growing stuff. Such a depressing comment on where I live, but it dies because nothing's pollinated. So I need to look into edible plants that wind pollinate, because you just don't get. People think it's just bees. Like anything that kind of is small and move pollinates stuff. But we'll get there. I'm starting on the balcony. I've just ordered a louver system to go over it, and I'm going to put some of that modern fake grass down that looks way cooler than the old AstroTurf.
Nice.
It's no paddock, mate.
I think you should definitely get the smoker, though. That is something I've got.
The ones I mean, They're small. Yeah.
I've got a number of cooking devices that I've either found in second-hand stores or built or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I built a jerk chicken drum the other day out of a 44-gallon drum.
And how's that different to doing it in the oven? Is it like a tandoori kind of buzz?
I don't know. It just looks a bit cooler.
Just on social media, filling up with jerk.
Casually got the jerk barrel out in the paddock. Yeah.
But what? Explain it. You were the fellow food cooking geek here. So what is it doing? What is it particular about how it cooks stuff, and how does it heat and so on?
I think the size is a really well, originally, of course, it came from the jerk chicken and pork vendors in the Caribbean, and it was about being mobile. It was actually that you could put wheels on the bottom of it and wheel it round to, if there's no one was coming to your corner that day, you could hoof off down to the beach or closer to the bar or whatever it was, So I think that's really where it started. A bit like a taco stand or a hot dog stand, it was kind of like a taco truck. Go and find the people if the people aren't coming to you, So I think that's where it really started with the drums. And the size is really good in that you can have it extremely hot in one area. But
how are you feeding it heat? Is it gas?
No, charcoal.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I'm a real fire guy. I love cooking with fire. I don't know if you know the Patagonian chef Francis Melman.
Oh, that's a deep cut, man. Come on.
Okay, we'll go in there. Okay. There we go. That's my tip.
I should go and watch him. Yeah.
He's amazing.
Okay.
He's in. I'm pretty sure he's on that Chef's Table Netflix series. He's the guy building massive fires out in the snowy
Oh, this sounds
hills.
like my lockdown treat. I'll go and have a look.
Dude.
Thank you.
Yep. So he's been the inspiration. So I've got a pizza oven. I've got a parrilla, which is an Argentinian fire grill. I took some bricks out to the paddock and made a fire pit out there so I can grill things out there if I want. I've got
what's that name
oven.
for? What's that name for an expert? Like when you get an expert to help you with something, like not a contractor, like that businessy term. Anyway, you need to be that for my balcony.
Consultant.
You need to be the consultant for my balcony projects. And it sounds like some of these aren't purchased. You made a few of these things.
Yeah, we've been making them. It's been fun. That's been part of the fun, has been working out how to. So just to step back a little bit, my dad, when I was growing up, he's a microbiologist. He's an incredibly smart scientist, but he actually trained as a carpenter, and it was the thing he really wanted to do was be a builder.
Yeah.
And so he taught us, not really taught us, he made us hold the bits of wood while he built our houses and stuff while we were kids. And, you just kind of soak it up over the years, building things, building. And then subsequently, the two houses that me and my partner have owned, we've built and renovated, and I've done all the building for that. And that's just kind of got, now it's kind of gone into things like, I want to have a barbecue. Oh, well, I could buy one or I could build one. So it's going to be much more fun if I build one.
Oh man, it's great that you had that as part of your kind of coming on up, because a friend of mine in Melbourne, she has built a reggae sound system from scratch. She was actually one of the last episodes. And so things you find out about a mate you've known for 20 years, because they never come up in conversation. Her dad was a carpenter when she grew up, which goes a long way to her having like some kind of, far more kind of like perspective on how to do it than I have, but also far more confidence than I would have to try and start building speaker boxes,
Yeah, funnily enough, that's the speaker boxes are on the to-do list. I just recently bought some old they're called Allen organ speakers. So I mean, finding things like Clipshawns and that sort of stuff in New Zealand and old Tannoy gold speakers, that's hard to do and really expensive. But
so you're talking like
15-inch speakers.
Sorry, go on. No, go on.
Are the hi-fi speakers of the same ilk as those sorts of speakers.
Yeah.
And they were used in churches all the time to deal with the bottom end of the organs, of big pipe organs. So they've got huge capacity to pile out big banging bass. So
you're not looking at, you want to build something of the, why would you, like the scope of a reggae sound system, but you're meaning that you want to build a serious home system.
Oh yeah, I actually want to build a little system that I can install in various places for just random things. I do quite a few random events down here.
I'm sure not. You're perfectly capable and more connected than I am, probably. But another person you probably know, Toby Muir, Auckland Reggae. So when I wrote the article for Audio Culture on sound system history, he let me into so funny how militant it was. He let me into this Facebook group, and then immediately I was ejected at the end of the article, which is fine. But if you hit him up, they've got a group of sound system build. All the guys in New Zealand who are serious about it.
There are some great systems.
Have a Facebook page. Yeah. Same in Melbourne. Like it went from. I was talking to Fee about it. Like she and I ended up in a flat together about 20 years ago, and went to a reggae gig with a guy, Jesse, who's entrenched over there. And I don't think anyone had an actual physical sound system there, but it took some guy who had some following in the UK, Jar something I recognised, came back and gave himself a different name in Melbourne and built one. And I think now there's there's over 15. There's a lot considering what a major undertaking they are. So going back, you kind of segued nicely for me, like talking about you when you were younger, but with your dad first, like why did he not be a carpenter? Was it his parents pressuring him into, you got to be a doctor or a lawyer or a...
I think it was something along those lines. He was a smart student, They basically said, hey, look, you've got siblings, they can take over the family farm and do that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You go to university. And which he, I think he was kind of torn one way, in both directions. He loved science. He loves, stretching his brain. He's a smart guy. At the same time, he's just so incredibly practical. and loves
Yeah.
building. So,
Yeah.
you know, he built and renovated old wooden boats when we were a kid. You know, he'd finish dinner and then he'd disappear out to the carport where he'd be repairing by hand these crazy old wooden boats and things, and doing it. He's such a, you know, the scientist part of him.
Yeah.
One is good for the problem solving, but he's also just so finicky and precise.
Is he still around? We're talking
Yeah.
about him in the past tense, right?
Oh, he doesn't do any of that anymore.
Yeah.
So if something needs to be fixed or built, he does the planning stage and then rings me up to do the doing stage.
Is he in Kerikeri? That's where you're from, right?
No, I'm from the Tron, from
Where
Hamilton.
did I get that you were from Kerikeri? I must have...
Maybe it's my sunny disposition.
Maybe it's your Wikipedia page.
No, he lives down here in Hawke's Bay too. Joe from Freddy's is up that way. From
Oh,
up that
yeah.
way.
Oh, look, you all look the same. No, just kidding. So that's why one of you wears that big hat. So
Yeah.
so why Hamilton? Because I guess that's where you were born, right? So why did the folks settle in Hamilton? Just generations there, or
Science. So they grew up.
Science,
both
bro.
my parents. Yep, science. Dad's from Te Aroha, slightly further east, and Mum's from Morrinsville, slightly further west, towards Hamilton. So just out there in the bottom of the Hauraki Plains, and they ended up gravitating to the big smoke of the Tron.
gets a bit of flack. The Tron, is it warranted, Scott?
I think it probably was back in the day, but now it's actually, you know, like everywhere, you can get a decent flat weight there.
yeah. I think the joke's more played out than what the city's up to. Like I watched 7 days ago. If someone makes another fucking joke about Hamilton, it's like you guys need to write new material. I've just quickly deleted my anecdote about Kerikeri being where the first grapes were grown. So that's really going to stall us for content, mate.
We'll have nothing to talk about.
Yeah. How did you discover How did you discover brass? Because at least you're a little bit older than me, but when I came on up in Wellington, it felt like rock guitar, rock instruments were everything for a while. It's kind of, to me, feels like, in my world at least, it was kind of a brass revival. How do you might completely disagree with that? How do you come to playing brass?
I had piano lessons. Mum was really into music. She wanted us to all have a little bit of musical training. So I had piano lessons. Sucked at that. Terrible.
Yeah.
Short little, like unusual hands, and that really wide palm, really short fingers.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
Look,
can't play piano. Can't play guitar.
You watch all those scratch DJs, Scott. You look at their fingers, right? Okay. So
Stubby,
anyway,
stubby.
I just held my hand up, folks, in the camera. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So I was no good at that, and I was hating those lessons. And then at intermediate school, I had a really proactive music teacher. He got kids in from the local high school to just demonstrate all the sorts of instruments you could learn. And the guy with the saxophone stood up and had a fantastic mullet. And
like sexy sax guy.
Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
And he started playing, and I thought, ooh, I could do that. I could grow a mullet and play the saxophone.
Where are we here? 80, 88, 86?
80, no, that would have been 84, 85.
Oh, yeah, that's prime sexy sax territory.
Ah, totally. Man, it was all over, Prince had...
Did he have a colourful short-sleeve shirt on?
Saxophone players, and Bruce Springsteen had saxophone players. Saxophone was big in there.
Huey Lewis and the News feel like they
Totally.
had
Everywhere.
Great.
They had saxophone players, there was saxophone everywhere. UB40 was all over the TV as well, and the radio.
Oh my God, you're so right. And then, yeah. No, you're right. It's a big part of 80s pop culture.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
Huge part. And and it just went from there. I didn't really, I kind of had a bit of a natural affinity for it. And then, by the kind of middle of high school, I was playing in local bands and making good money. That was the thing that kept me in it. I was like, well, I could be mowing the lawn for $5, or I could go off and do this gig with this blues band. And
so they sneak you into the bar and you stay on the stage kind of thing?
Yeah, totally.
Great.
As
Yeah.
it turned out, I played for this band. I won't talk about who they were. They
Oh, why was that? You can't let that.
Well, we were doing all these gigs all over the Waikato, up at the Coromandel,
Yeah.
and then out to Tauranga, and then down to Taupo, and
So a known entity to
Well-
New Zealand outside of being a pub band.
yeah, I guess they were a pub band, but they were a really popular pub
Okay,
band.
great.
And I was
Okay,
like,
cool.
man, we're doing lots of work all over the place.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of my time playing with them, I worked out it was because the guy who was running the band was actually dealing drugs for the mongrel mob, and it was the
You're like
band
a
stuff.
kid negotiating.
Yeah, so I was totally a wet behind the ears,
Yeah.
green kid in this
Yeah.
front, and I was just like, all right, so we've just been doing these gigs really as a cover for you to drive, or he'd just got out of prison for assault, just for you to drive around the country, say you're working,
Trafficking
satisfy the parole
gear.
board, trafficking gear for the gang.
Jesus.
We played some good music, though, it has to be said. Good band. But,
Yeah, you know.
yeah, it was-
but how did that come out or into conversation? So it doesn't sound like you're saying he got busted or anything.
No,
you just
no.
figured it out.
we started playing at a place. I'm pretty sure it was called the Crossroads.
Yeah.
Of course, it was called the Crossroads, which was somewhere in the Waikato, and it was like neutral turf for all the gangs, where they would all turn up, and sort of it'd be a bit of a truce there, and yeah. And I just sort of started noticing things as I was probably 16 by then. I was like, oh, that's actually what's happening here. What's actually going down here?
Yeah, so you weren't completely naive, because there are some people that would just totally go over their heads.
It did to begin with, absolutely.
Yeah,
and then I got a bit more wise to it, and then I just kind of I sort of drifted away from music for a bit, and I was really into sports, into cricket and soccer, and I wanted to go and study being a physiotherapist down in Otago.
Were
But I ended up-
you good at sport as well? Like, were you,
I was.
Yeah.
I was really good at sport, actually.
Yeah.
Well, not really good. I was pretty good at sport. Good enough. And I was obsessed with it, though. And then in my last year at high school, I had my leg broken really badly in a football tournament, and it meant that I was in a cast from my ankle up to my hip for about 9 months.
Yeah.
And there was not a lot to do other than sit on the couch and play my saxophone, and that sort of, there I was, off I went into saxophone land. So no more sport.
There was something about you were thinking about studying physio, so it's sounding like this is leading to you saying this is how I ended up, because you went to jazz school in Wellington, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I finished high school, didn't really know what I was going to do. Playing saxophone lots, playing, gigs and that sort of thing, doing some shitty part-time jobs, earning some money, surfing, going to the beach, doing all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to check up and sort of see what my old mulleted saxophone teacher had been doing.
Yeah.
And he'd been down in Wellington at the music school, and I thought, oh, maybe I could do that. So
Did you have a mullet? Did you have a mullet?
No, not
Okay.
really.
They just seem to feature prominently in this story, but go on.
Yeah, no. We all had slight mullets in
Okay,
Hamilton in the
sorry,
80s, come on.
Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off.
And
Go
I
ahead.
just,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
just ended up sort of going, actually, yeah, this is what I want to do now. I want to do music.
Great.
And managed to convince my mum was all into it. She was, like, yes, okay, where you go. Dad was like, no, you need to get some education, tertiary education. But then I convinced them that, if I sucked at being a saxophone player, I would then be able to go and be a secondary school music teacher because I had the qualifications once I'd done
Right.
this course.
Gotcha.
that
So
was it.
win-win.
Came down to Wellington, got into music, met all the Wellington peeps,
Yeah.
and that was it, really.
Great. And another thing I want to ask while I have your attention as an expert is probably been more recently that I've understood or learned that Reedz are a kind of a thing that you have to condition or choose, or I don't know, like fill me in there. Are there, like, if you get a whole bunch of them, are some better than others?
Yeah, so I guess much the same way that a a guitar string sort of changes during its life, in that you get it out of the packet and it's a guitar string, and you stick it on the guitar and you have to stretch it and get it, settled and everything, and then it has a lifespan, and that it sounds great for a while, and then they start sounding shitty, and then they break. Reeds do exactly the same thing, in that they're cut from like an actual reed, so they're a living thing.
Yeah.
Then they're dried out, and so the process of cutting and drying them is not precise.
Yeah.
Some of them will be perfect, some of them will be a bit off, so they'll be thicker in one area, they'll be a little bit warped, whatever it is. So yeah, people have all sorts of theories about how you sort of rotate them around, and I kind of have a stable or a harem of reeds, perhaps. Let's call it a stable, because that's probably better.
Yeah.
Where they are in various parts of their lifespan.
Oh,
Some are
so
brand
interesting.
new,
Yeah.
looking good. But I'm really finicky about reeds, in that the guys in the music store hate me. And they've changed this a little bit lately, because they're all like...
Is it like, don't let Scott open the boxes? Don't let Scott...
Yeah, because I'm going to go through every single reed in the box and they'll say, do you want a box? I'm like, well, possibly. Pass me the box. And they're like, okay. I get the box.
Also quite controversial in these coronavirus times, Scott, to be going through and
I was just
fingering
gonna say,
people's reeds.
They have changed that in the last few years. So now they're individually packaged, a bit like minties or condoms. You get a box of them. Yeah.
So right. So what I heard is correct. Someone I was listening to or reading about, musician talk about him sitting there and going through a bunch at the beginning of their life, rather than you've talked about of having a bunch. So there are, but you do kind of suss. Well, that's just what you described. You're sussing them at the beginning in the store, right?
Yeah, that's right. You're kind of doing that initial cut. You're kind of going, yep, they all look even. They're kind of, it's like buying a piece of wood at the...
No, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
ITM, or, is this one straight? Yes, okay. It goes into the, I'll buy it pile.
Second thing I'm curious about with this reed business is, you mentioned imperfections and so on. Now, as we know, with something like the 808 and its bad transistors, which is obviously completely electronic, it's really beneficial. Like, is there no use for a reed with an imperfection, or some people find they get a particular sound or feel out of that? Like, are you looking for the perfect ones all the time, and the ones that aren't are useless, or?
Yeah, because I guess the analogy with the 808 and its resistors
airflow.
is that it would be, the reed part would be having like your trigger, your button to trigger the snare or whatever. If that button's not working, it doesn't matter how awesome that snare sounds. It's if it's only working half the times you touch it, then it's not really doing the job it's supposed to be doing.
I realised partway through that I kind of knew all of that, but I was committed, so I
yeah, no, the idiosyncrasy part of it is not that desirable. In fact, it's a classic one too. If you're having a shitty gig, you can always blame it on your reed.
It's so interesting. I'm so lucky to do these episodes and get to ask this really kind of micro stuff, because I find it super, super interesting. I hopefully to my nerdy listeners. But do you work on other music outside of Freddie's?
I do.
Yeah.
But in varying different ways. So I don't play in other bands. But if there's a little side project, so I've done a bit of stuff, horn arranging for and recording for Solar Rosa and for Julian Dine. My biggest outlet would probably be collecting records.
Great.
And so I've got a really sort of broad taste in music when it comes to... I love the artifacts of records. I love secondhand record stores.
Great.
And that's a big thing for me when we're on tour. It's the way that gets me out of the bus, out of the venue.
Sort of like fishing. Sounds like a kind of a fishing...
Absolutely is.
Yeah.
That's right. And I can go and spend an hour leafing through the bins in a secondhand store and walk out with nothing and still feel like I've had a good time,
Yeah.
So that's kind of the biggest. That's the biggest musical connection outside.
Oh yeah, and you often and regularly DJ too, don't you?
Yeah. So that's really come off the back of getting into record collecting when I was living in the UK. So I was a happy punter in London, and in Wellington. You know, I sort of was playing gigs and going to dance parties and that sort of thing. But I wasn't really into the music collecting or DJ culture or anything like that.
Yeah.
When I got to London, there were just record stores everywhere. Oh my God.
You been to Japan?
It was it was just incredible.
Been to Japan? I went to Japan and I was like, I can't engage with this. I need to have a normal holiday.
Jeez, it's intense there, right? It's so intense, but
dude,
beautiful.
They farmed the rest of the world out for ages, you know.
Yeah. So I mean, in fact, I'll be going into the shed to check out some records and just
move the sausages to the side while they're curing and get in there.
That's right. Get out of the way,
record
chorizo.
Heavy meat combo. Awesome. Before we go, did you ever get into that ramen from scratch recipe I sent you? Because it's one of the simplest I've found.
I haven't, but I
cool.
will, because it's one of the things I'm trying to convince the family of the wonders of the ramen.
I'm honestly,
I'm a fan.
Like as you probably know, you cannot scientifically say what the best ramen is. It's tied with family history. It's tied with preparation process. You know, da 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 da. All I'd say about that recipe is, in terms of what some of the others required, like a lot of them are really way more laborious. Like, it's a process, but it's not too full on. But the result, and I'm no kind of like ramen expert, but hey, there's my taste buds, is it's really, really, really tasty.
Yeah.
And easy to make with quite easy to find ingredients in New Zealand.
I would definitely be doing that. I'm a bit like you in that I get fixated on a particular thing for a while.
Mine's been laksas, and it's to the point where, like, I'm going to ruin this. One day I won't be able to eat a laksa. But home ones, because for years, even chefs said to me, like, just don't try and make a home laksa. Like, it's just, they're one of those things you only go and get out. And mine's not as good as a going out one, but it's pretty damn good. And again, it's quite easy to make.
I'm a bit like that. I'm like that with, pizza, obviously. I've been making pizza for, in my pizza ovens for...
Yeah.
I built the pizza oven in the first place as a treat to myself for my 40th birthday.
Great.
And so I've been making pizzas and learning about dough and all that sort of stuff ever since. And so I'm obsessed about making my own pizza. And now that's kind of spilled out into, I got into a phase where it was all about making pho.
Making what?
Pho, a Vietnamese beef noodle soup.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I believe so.
PHO?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes that for shizzle meme make more sense. Anyway, yep, go on.
And then lately it's been mee goreng. Oh my God, I'm obsessed with making mee goreng.
Now, just one sec, we're going to finish up soon, but you need to step back, because noodle soups are kind of like, I reckon I often eat them for breakfast. I could quite happily, I could happily live on the variation of them, but are you able to afford me a pho recipe? Like, I will totally.
I will.
Awesome, man. I'd love that.
It's the same thing in that this process of, I love it. It's like burning the onions so that they get this particular sort of,
A basic one I do, like a lot of mornings, like I basically don't eat cereal because it's a scam. But anyway, is just like stock that I always have on hand that I make, like a veggie stock. This is just like a basic kind of nice, cleanish soup, like veggie stock, tablespoon of soy sauce, garlic, ginger, lemongrass, a little bit of chili. Boil that together for 10 minutes, and then I just throw my noodles and whatever fresh veggies or leftover meat I've got in. Poach an egg in the last 3 minutes that you cook when you're cooking the noodles. Yeah, that's a break. I mean, actually, that's what I had this morning. So noodle soups.
That's a good breakfast there.
Oh, dude, it's great, man. Like, because I need to eat. I'm someone who needs to eat quite a lot in the morning. Just before you go, like, this isn't a pissing contest, but how many vinegars? How many vinegars you got? How many vinegars?
How many vinegars?
How many vinegars you running?
Oh, I reckon we're probably running maybe 6 vinegars, maybe at the moment.
Yeah. Sugar? Maybe how many different kinds of sugar you got?
Oh, well, Fiona's a baker, so oh man,
you got some muscovado there. That dark that's a serious sugar, man.
Is agave syrup considered a sugar?
I think it's sugar. Yeah.
Okay, let's say
I'm threatened. I'm threatened. Oils. Let's end on oils, and I don't mean just food oils.
Oh, Look, I love an olive oil,
Yeah.
so
gotta-
I'm a bit of a hoarder, especially if we're travelling and I can bring back a little bottle of something from that's been grown on some crusty little olive grove somewhere. So I'd say there's probably a good 10 to 12 oils.
Have you
probably more.
and you can drop good money on olive oil in places like that. Have you got some flash ones?
I don't think I've ever gone really flash on the oil front. I tell you what, I got obsessed with
Every time we
balsamic
go and
vinegar
stop, we
for a
keep
little while,
talking about
which
food.
was-
Let's do another hour. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
We'll get done. Finish with this. Yeah.
There are vintage balsamic vinegars.
I know.
Which go for, thousands of dollars a bottle. And I got
It's like whiskey. They keep adding to
Yeah.
the same barrel.
Oh man, I was just amazed when I found out about that. So I'm a big fan of the bitter salad with a simple vinaigrette sort of thing. But your vinegar and your oil in that sort of context are very, very important. It's if I teach my son nothing, I can and I die tomorrow, I can die happy knowing that I've taught him how to make vinaigrette.
That's look at that for a conclusion, man. Okay, this has been a pleasure, and it sounded really good compared to the other day when we tried to go. Take care, and again, say hi to the
see you,
fam,
buddy.
Yeah, it was really lovely, bro.
Yeah,
see you, mate.
Human interaction can't be underrated. Can it?
Totally.